Hey everyone, this is Nate. You're watching WASD20, and today I'm going to be showing you how I do lettering for maps and just some things to keep in mind when you're doing your lettering for your maps. Lettering is not something I've paid a lot of attention to before, but I'm starting to realize that it really can make a very big difference in the way your map looks. It's a really big part of a fantasy map. He's showing you some things that I've done wrong here, and basically we'll be following an outline like this. Firstly, we're going to talk about space for lettering. Secondly, I'll show you my style, my basic style of lettering. Third, I'll show you some other styles. And lastly, just other considerations, call it. Alright, so saving space for lettering is one of the first things. Now, I learned in my very first map here, the one that I've been working on a lot, that I didn't really save space. Now, I did the lettering on this one after I actually did this map, which you may remember I did for my good friend Juice. And one thing that I didn't like here is that I drew everything in first and then I did the lettering. And I did everything in pen first, and then I did the lettering. So, places like this were drawn over the coastline, and this right here, and they're hard to read. Tiembre Falls, you know, the B right there falls right on that dark coastline. It just makes it hard to read. Same with this down here, and yeah, I just didn't really save room for the letters. And in hindsight, I realized my personal preference is that you save room. So on this one, I was careful not to draw over any of the coastlines or the mountains or anything like that, but I just had to kind of cram in the letters where I could. So that actually affected where I put the city of Logriff, which is kind of insane to me. So it really did affect where I put things because I hadn't lettered it, or because I had already drawn everything in pen first, and now I was left with the lettering. I still haven't finished all the lettering here. I've actually got some erasing to do there, and got to relabel some things on here and probably put a couple more places on. But we'll get to that in the next video. Now, since doing the lettering on some of these maps, I have gotten the book, How to Draw Fantasy Art for RPG Maps, and RPG Maps rather. And I thought I'd just show off a little bit of some of the tips they give in this book. And I imagine we'll be turning to this book quite a bit as we continue the map making videos. But here's just a bit on script style, cultural typography, the idea of drawing guides, which I have not done very well, and I want to start doing more, but I've done some of them. And then here you go, saving space. See, look, they essentially start by blocking in where their text is going to go along this river, and it curves along the river, and they save space for it so it's not having to overlap the river. Same with this right here. In this case, they actually penciled in the guidelines and then erased using a neat eraser across there to leave that blank space. And I think it comes out looking pretty nice. This right here is kind of an interesting look because it almost looks like the words haunted forest are on the ground between trees. Kind of a cool look. Here you've got some curved ones. If you're doing curved ones, I definitely recommend drawing those guidelines. I'll give you an example on my own of where I didn't do that. So examples of where I didn't do that very well are right here, the West Reach Sea. You can see how it curves, but it doesn't curve very even. It kind of goes up and then it goes back down a little bit. This one right here too, it starts curving and then it just kind of, this one takes a little jump up and definitely is not following any kind of guideline. That S is a little too high. Anyway, not too happy with that, but live and learn, it's okay. Now this one is a more recent one that I did. Someone commissioned me to do this one for his D&D group. And so this one I thought ahead and I saved space for lettering. And I actually did the letters, and I'll show you a picture here. You can see that the only thing I had inked at one point was the place names, the lettering. So I got wise, and that's probably how I'll do things from now on. I didn't ink in any of this texture here in the forest until after I had already written Fordel's Wood there. Same with right here, the Lusani River. You can see I left lines that I didn't draw in for the river because I wanted to save space for that lettering. Same with right here, the mountains right there. So anyway, you get the idea. Alright, now we're going to talk about my basic style. So if I'm doing some lettering for a map, what I generally do is just print neatly. And you could argue it's not very neat, but anyway, I try to print fairly neatly, and sometimes I get impatient and just get in a hurry. And so if I were going to do, let's take the city of Marinth, which is a major city in my homebrew world. Actually, you know what? We're going to get wise. We're going to do those guidelines. Take my handy-dandy Children's Museum ruler here. Alright, so I've got some guidelines there. I had someone tell me in one of my videos that, you should look into getting one of those lettering guides, and I might look into getting one of those, but honestly, this is a pretty minor part of what I do, and it's not something I'm trying to be super particular with. I'm interested in getting things done fairly quickly, and, maybe someday I'll get more into it, but for now, just trying to get the job done and have it look decent. Back to the city of Marinth. If we were going to do that, I would simply print, and I'm not using a ruler. I'm not trying to be perfect here. I'm just trying to print fairly neatly, and I generally, for larger cities and landmarks and such, I do all caps. Okay, so there you have it. I've printed sort of neatly the name of Marinth. And now what I'm going to do, just to add a little something extra that elevates it beyond my regular print, or my regular extra neat print for me, because my handwriting's not that good, is I go in and I add these little lines here, and we call these serifs. So this is now, instead of a sans serif font, it's a serif font. You can even kind of hook those a little bit if you want to. And this is just something that, I don't know, it came naturally to me when I was doing maps, and I printed and I thought, okay, how can I make this text look a little bit nicer? And I thought this helped. Dressed it up a little bit. Alright, so there you go. And you can get a little more decorative and do other things too. I've thought about trying to do a map where I do all cursive, which, that could look good potentially. I'm not very good at cursive, but I'll try here. In that case, it probably would help me if I had the 3 guidelines, because I remember doing it that way when I was in elementary school. Anyway, or you can just do, sort of a flowy, messier looking text, where you're just kind of... I'm not happy with that. Let me try again. Something like that could look cool, and then you can always go back to these fonts and you can kind of thicken the lines a little bit and yeah, make it a little different, dress it up again. That's the idea. And so anyway, I'm not going to go back and do more, but one thing I will say is I mentioned in another video that I got these dip pens, and I got a whole bunch of different nibs, for some for calligraphy. If they're flat like this, that means they're for calligraphy, or these are just for regular writing or drawing. So these are called the nibs, and then you just stick them into this right here, and you dip it in ink. And this sort of thing right here is a lot easier to achieve with these pens, where you can, you press harder and the line gets thicker, or you angle your pen in such a way with a calligraphy pen that certain lines, certain parts of letters are going to be naturally thicker. And I've messed around with that a little bit. I think I might have shown this on one of my other videos, but yeah, this is all just really rough, just kind of me doodling for the first time with these pens, and practicing these sorts of flourishes here, practicing a Gothic style, which I want to learn this Gothic style a little better and get good at that, because I think it can look pretty cool. And yeah, again, this is just me kind of doodling, trying to get used to the feel of those pens. So I have a lot of work to do there, but yeah, it's something you could try if you want to try something different and do a little something extra with your lettering. And I hope to learn that really well we'll see if I can dedicate the time to it. You know, I need a new hobby, right? And as soon as I become a pro at it, I'll show you all and I'll teach you all how to do it. We'll see. Another way to possibly think about trying other styles would be to just look at fonts. Go to dafonts.com and check them out and just find some fonts you like and try to mimic them. In prepping for this video, I actually went and I printed out a couple just interesting fonts I had on my computer, Inshar and Felsarin, which is a name of my homebrew world and a city in my homebrew world, and I just started kind of messing with it. And the nice thing is you can take this as a base, and then because you are just using it for inspiration, you can add flourishes and all kinds of crazy things, and I was just kind of messing around and toying around with that. Now you might say, why don't you just take them in Photoshop and put those fonts in anyway? And you could do that too. If you have really terrible handwriting, you know, you can take it into Photoshop or GIMP or something, and just try to get your nice text in there over your drawings. That's always an option. But I really like the hand-drawn style. That's just me. Alright, part 4, other considerations, just some things to think about, and that is kind of classification represented in your typeface, in your font, in your lettering. What I mean by that is you might decide, for example, that all of your towns, like in this one right here, are going to start with capital but then be lowercase, right? So all of my smaller towns and my bridges, for that matter, are not all caps. And then my big city, I even made the E a little bit bigger and darker just to represent this. It's a really important place. And then most of the other things I just did all caps. And some of them I wasn't even that consistent. I should probably go back and kind of fix up some of it. But yeah, you get the idea here. I'm showing classification in font size. So the Blue Peaks are a big mountain range, so I made that bigger. The Foretells Wood is a big forest, so I made that bigger. And then, you know, some of the smaller geographical features aren't quite as big in terms of the font size. Another thing to consider is how you're doing your title. So for me, I just kind of, eyeballed, and I just kind of freehanded some big blocky text. And for this one, I did draw pencil lines as guides because I wanted to make sure it was pretty straight. It's not perfect. I still have to do that for my own homebrew world here in this map, and I'm kind of putting that off because I want to make sure I find the right style before I put in the name there, Inshar. So, yep. Anyway, that's just something else to consider is, you know, how you're going to do your big font there. On this one, I'm actually pretty happy with how this one came out. Just kind of a harsh style. And if I were going to be putting ink to this, I would probably shade that in and make it dark. So yeah, I thought that one turned out pretty cool. Hydrune. Alright, so those are some of the basics of how I do lettering, and yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. If you have styles you want to share, how do you do it? I'd love to see you. I certainly don't claim to be an expert on this, and I've got a lot to learn, so even if you want to share pictures with me, I'd love to see what you're doing map-wise and for your lettering. It's hard to do that on YouTube here in the comments, but you can always reach out to me on Twitter or on Facebook. There's links to that down in the description, and you can find me and show me what you're doing. Love to see that stuff. Alright, if you like this one, everybody give it a thumbs up, and you'll see me again very soon for our next one, which is going to be other geographical features such as deserts, swamps, volcanoes, other things like that. Alright, so it should be a fun one, and we're getting pretty close to the end here of this very first map making series. Alright, until next time, everybody take care, and happy world building, happy mapping.